Chasing people is something almost everyone does at some point in life. It usually starts quietly. You meet someone, you feel a connection, and you naturally start putting in effort. You text first, you check in, you try to keep the conversation going, you make time, you adjust your schedule. At first, it feels normal because you care, but over time, something shifts. The effort becomes one-sided. The replies become slower. The energy becomes inconsistent. And without realizing it, you find yourself chasing. The problem with chasing is not effort itself. Effort is healthy when it is mutual. The real issue begins when effort turns into pursuit, and pursuit turns into imbalance. Because when you are constantly chasing someone, you are slowly placing your value in their hands. Their response becomes your validation. Their attention becomes your reward, and their absence becomes your anxiety. One of the biggest reasons you should stop chasing people is because it creates an uneven dynamic from the beginning. In any healthy connection, there is balance. Both people show interest, both people invest time, both people contribute emotionally. But when you are the only one pushing the connection forward, you are also the only one carrying it. Over time, this imbalance affects how you are perceived, not because you are doing something wrong, but because human psychology responds to effort in a specific way. When something is always available without equal effort, it starts to feel less valuable. Not in a disrespectful sense, but in a natural adjustment of perception. The more you chase, the more the dynamic shifts away from mutual interest and toward expectation. Another important reason to stop chasing people is emotional exhaustion. Chasing is draining. You start analyzing messages, timing, tone, and behavior. You wonder why they are not responding the same way. You question yourself more than you question the situation. This mental loop slowly affects your emotional stability. Instead of feeling secure in a connection, you start feeling uncertain. Instead of enjoying the interaction, you start monitoring it. And instead of expressing yourself naturally, you begin adjusting your behavior based on their reactions. This is not connection anymore. It is emotional pressure. Chasing also slowly reduces self-respect, even if you do not notice it immediately. Every time you overextend yourself for someone who is not matching your energy, you send yourself a message that your effort is negotiable, that your time can be adjusted endlessly, that your presence can be accessed without equal value in return. Self-respect is not about being distant or unavailable. It is about understanding that your energy should be reciprocated, not begged for. When you constantly chase, you start accepting less than what you actually need. And over time, that becomes a pattern. Another reason to stop chasing is because it rarely creates real connection. People often believe that if they try harder, the other person will eventually see their value. But attraction and emotional connection do not grow through pressure. They grow through mutual interest, consistency, and willingness from both sides. When someone is genuinely interested, you do not have to chase them. You do not have to convince them. You do not have to constantly prove your presence. Their response naturally matches your effort. And if it does not, no amount of chasing will create something that was not there to begin with. Chasing also creates emotional imbalance, where you become overly focused on one person. Your thoughts, mood, and energy start revolving around their behavior. If they reply, you feel good. If they don't, you feel low. This creates a dependency cycle, where your emotional state is controlled externally, instead of internally. That kind of dependency is dangerous because it removes your stability. You start losing focus on your own life, your goals, and your peace of mind. The more you chase, the smaller your world becomes, until one person's attention feels like the center of everything. Another hidden effect of chasing is that it often attracts the wrong kind of people. People who are inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, or self-centered tend to stay in dynamics where they are pursued, not because they are better, but because chasing signals availability without conditions. When you constantly chase, you unintentionally teach others that your effort is automatic, that they do not need to match it, that they can invest less while still receiving more. And that creates an unhealthy cycle where imbalance becomes the norm. On the other hand, when you stop chasing, something important happens. You regain control over your energy. You start observing instead of pursuing. You start responding instead of overextending, and you begin to see people for who they actually are, not who you hope they will become. This shift is powerful because it brings clarity. You see who is genuinely interested and who is only present when it is convenient. You see who values your presence and who takes it for granted. And most importantly, you see where your energy is actually going. Stopping the chase does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. It does not mean ignoring people or playing games. It simply means no longer forcing connections that are not naturally mutual. It means allowing effort to flow both ways instead of carrying it alone. There is a difference between choosing to invest in someone and chasing them. Investment is mutual and grounded. Chasing is one-sided and emotionally driven by uncertainty. One builds stability, the other creates anxiety. When you stop chasing, you also start building self-trust. You begin to trust your judgment about who is worth your time. You stop second-guessing every interaction. You stop overanalyzing silence, and you stop lowering your standards just to keep someone around. This does not mean you will never feel uncertainty again, but it does mean you will respond differently to it. Instead of chasing clarity from someone else, you observe their actions, because actions always reveal more than words or mixed signals ever will. Another important change that happens when you stop chasing is that your relationships become more balanced. The right people naturally step forward. Conversations feel easier. Effort feels mutual, and there is no constant need to question where you stand. People often think that chasing is how you keep someone interested, but in reality, the opposite is true. Constant chasing often pushes genuine connection away because it removes space for the other person to invest. Without space, there is no room for reciprocity. When you stop chasing, you also start valuing yourself differently. You begin to understand that your time is not something to be spent on uncertainty. Your attention is not something to be given endlessly, and your energy is not something to be drained for temporary validation. This shift does not happen overnight. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You might feel the urge to reach out, to fix things, to keep the connection alive. But over time, as you step back, you begin to notice something important. Peace returns. Clarity returns. And emotional stability starts to rebuild itself. The truth is, people who are meant to stay in your life do not require chasing. They meet you halfway. They show effort without being asked, they communicate without being pushed, and they value your presence without needing constant reminders. Letting go of chasing is not about losing people. It is about finding balance. It is about removing one-sided effort from your life and making space for relationships that are naturally mutual. Because in the end, the goal is not to be chosen by someone you had to chase. The goal is to be valued by someone who chooses you without hesitation, without confusion, and without you having to prove your worth through exhaustion.